I never thought my life would feel like a cheap soap opera until Thanksgiving. It all started with the clinking of glasses and the smell of roasted turkey drifting through the living room. The table was covered in an earthy brown cloth filled with traditional dishes. Our entire extended family had gathered at my parents' house in Portland. Aunt Carol brought her pumpkin pie. My cousin Luke was loudly cracking jokes at the head of the table. And me, I just sat quietly like I did every year. No one asked if I needed help. No one asked how work was going. They never really cared. I was cutting up mashed potatoes for my niece Ellie when a too familiar voice rang out sharp enough to freeze the room. Before we carve the turkey, I have something to say. My sister Vanessa stood up, flashing a smile that was sickeningly sweet. Her hair was meticulously curled, her nails painted blood red, her tone crisp and rehearsed like she practiced it in front of a mirror for hours. Everyone looked up, forks suspended in midair. I held my breath. "I think it's time we were all honest with each other," she said, glancing around the room like a pageant queen about to announce a winner. "Last week, we took a vote." My father cleared his throat. My mother set her wine glass down, visibly eager. "And the result," Vanessa paused, inhaling dramatically before turning to me. I laughed. "We've decided. You are no longer part of this family." The room went still. I thought I misheard. But then the worst thing happened. The table applauded. Applause. Real applause. And Carol whistled softly. Luke raised his glass like he was toasting. And my mother? She burst out laughing like it was the funniest joke of the night. Finally, someone said it. She commented casually, like noting the weather. I looked at my father. He didn't turn to me, just shook his head slightly and murmured, "Maybe this is for the best." I sat frozen, my hand gripping the edge of the tablecloth. The turkey on my plate was still steaming, but I felt ice cold. My throat tightened, not from sadness, but fury. Slowly, I pushed my chair back and stood up in the smug silence. "You actually planned this?" Vanessa smiled, unmistakably victorious. "You've always been a thorn in everyone's side. Always so cold, distant, acting like you're better than us." They didn't respond, just nodded slowly, then bent down and picked up my purse. "I guess if I'm no longer family, then these won't be necessary." I placed a thick folder on the table. The sound it made was soft, but it sliced through the tension like a blade. Vanessa flinched. "What's this?" I crossed my arms, leaned back, and locked eyes with her. "Why don't you take a look?" The moment she flipped the first page, I saw it. That instant when her smile shattered like glass hitting tile. Her face turned pale. Her hands trembled as she turned to the next page. Then she shrieked, a sharp sound that made little Ellie burst into tears. Everyone stood up. Joel, Vanessa's husband, snatched the folder. Seconds later, he turned to me, his face drained of color. Is this real?" I nodded. Every number, every message, every lie. The holiday table became a silent battleground. Vanessa stood frozen, eyes still processing what she had read. The folder lay open, several pages now scattered on the floor from her shaking hands. No one said a word. The ticking wall clock and Ellie's sniffles on Aunt Carol's lap were the only sounds left. How did you get all of this?" Vanessa's voice cracked. I stepped toward the table, my voice steady, calmer than I expected. "Because I knew one day you'd do something you couldn't take back." Joel picked up one of the fallen pages. It showed a screenshot of a bank transfer, $2,800 from my account into one under Vanessa's name. right after she tearfully claimed Joel had lost his job. "And this?" Joel asked, voice low but sharp. "3 nights at the Grand Hill Hotel, charged to my card, booked under Alyssa Green." Vanessa opened her mouth, but couldn't form words. My mother tried to interject, but I raised my hand. "I'm not done." I bent down, pulled out another set of papers, and slid them toward my father. "These are for you. A full breakdown of everything I paid for your hospital bills after your fall last year. Itemized, receipts included." My father stared at the papers, his face unreadable, but his hand trembled slightly on the table. Then I turned to my mother. "And here's a screenshot of your bank transaction from March 14th, $2,200. I wired you to cover urgent credit card debt." My mother jumped in defensive. "Why are you bringing this up now? We're family. That money was given out of love." "What kind of love mocks me, excludes me, and then votes me off the dinner table?" I cut her off, eyes locked. "Not one of you ever apologized. None of you ever considered paying back a single dollar. I've been nothing but a walking wallet." Luke spoke up weakly. "Isla, maybe we shouldn't have clapped. We just didn't realize it was this serious." I turned to him calm, but razor sharp. "You clapped when I was kicked out of the family. You laughed when Vanessa insulted me in front of Ellie. You were silent every year I supported everyone, so don't pretend to be innocent now." The silence in the room grew heavier as I pulled out my phone. "Since we're being honest, let's go through everything, shall we?" I opened my notes app, the one I'd been quietly updating for years. March 2021. Vanessa needed $5,000 for Joel's medical emergency. Funny how that same weekend, they were posting beach vacation photos from Cancun. Vanessa's face turned red. Those were old photos. "Really?" I swiped to show time-stamped hotel receipts. "The Grand Sunset Resort seems to disagree. Posted by Alyssa Green, your favorite alias." Joel turned to Vanessa, his expression darkening. "You told me your friend paid for that trip." I continued, my voice steady. July 2022. Mom's desperate call about property taxes. $3,200 transferred. August 2022. Dad's car repair. $1,800. September 2022. Vanessa's business investment of $7,000, which actually funded her shopping spree at Nordstrom. My mother tried to interrupt. "Sweetheart, every family helps each other." "Let me finish." I cut her off. December 2022. Christmas gifts for everyone. January 2023. Ellie's private school deposit. February 2023. Dad's hospital bills. March 2023. Vanessa's emergency house repair. April 2023. Mom's credit card debt. May 2023. "Stop!" Vanessa screamed, her mascara starting to run. "Why are you doing this?" I looked at her calmly. "Because you all just voted to kick me out of the family. So let's make sure everyone knows exactly what they're voting away." I turned to my father. "Remember when you bragged to Uncle Steve about paying off your medical debt yourself?" Showing the transfer receipts from my account. Dad's face turned ashen. Uncle Steve looked between us, confusion turning to understanding. "Or how about when Vanessa won Employee of the Year at her company?" I continued. "Should we tell everyone about the $12,000 investment I made in her boss's wife's startup that mysteriously got her the nomination?" The room was dead silent now. Even little Ellie had stopped crying, sensing the tension. "And Mom," I turned to her, "remember that fundraiser you organized for the church? The one where you were praised for your generous anonymous donation. Would you like to tell everyone who actually made that donation? My mother's hand started shaking. I meant to pay you back. No, you didn't, I said softly. None of you did, because you never saw me as family. I was just a convenient ATM with a guilty conscience. Aunt Carol, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. But why did you keep giving if they treated you this way? I smiled sadly, because I kept hoping that one day, just one day, someone would say, "Thank you," and mean it. That someone would acknowledge me as more than just a walking checkbook. I pulled out one final document. This is a complete record of every loan, every gift, every financial support I've provided over the past 5 years. Total amount: $178,432. The number hung in the air like a guillotine. But don't worry, I continued, my voice ice cold. Since I'm no longer family, I've already contacted my lawyer. Every transaction will be treated as what it actually was, an unpaid loan. You have 30 days to start repayment, or we can discuss terms in court. Joel collapsed into his chair. We can't pay that back. Not my problem anymore, I replied. After all, I'm not family, remember? The room erupted into chaos. Vanessa started sobbing, mascara running down her cheeks. Joel was frantically scrolling through their joint bank account on his phone. My mother had her head in her hands, while my father just sat there, staring at the pile of receipts like they were written in a language he couldn't understand. You can't do this, Vanessa choked out between sobs. We're your family. I let out a hollow laugh. Funny how I'm family again when you need money. 10 minutes ago, you were leading the charge to kick me out. But Ellie's school, she started. Should have thought about that before the vote. I cut her off. I'm sure you can find another private school that costs less than $30,000 a year, or maybe sell some of those designer bags I inadvertently funded. My father finally found his voice. Isla, be reasonable. We can't possibly pay back that amount. I turned to him slowly. Remember last month when I asked to borrow $200 for car repairs? You said, and I quote, "It's time you learn to handle your own problems." Well, Dad, it's time you all learned to handle yours. But the hospital bills, he stammered, are now your responsibility. I finished, just like they should have been from the start. My mother tried a different approach. Sweetheart, we made a mistake. We were emotional. Can't we just forget this happened? Like you forgot about the $15,000 I gave you for home repairs? The money you actually spent on that luxury cruise? I pulled out another receipt. The one you told everyone was won in a radio contest. The color drained from her face. Aunt Carol, who had been quietly processing everything, suddenly stood up. I think I need to leave. Oh no, I said, pulling out another folder. You might want to stay for this part. Remember that investment opportunity you pitched me last Christmas? The one that turned out to be a pyramid scheme? She froze mid-step. I have copies of all our conversations, the wire transfers, and, I smiled coldly, the very interesting emails you sent to your friends bragging about how you'd found an easy mark in your naive niece. Luke, who had been unusually quiet, tried to slip away from the table. Leaving so soon, cousin? I called out. Don't you want to explain to everyone how you managed to afford that new truck? The one you bought right after I loaned you money for your sick dog's surgery. He slumped back into his chair. I stood up, gathering my things. You have 30 days to start repayment. My lawyer will contact each of you with payment plans based on the amount owed. If you choose not to comply, we'll handle this legally. But what about holidays? My mother asked weakly. Family gatherings? You voted, remember? I replied. I'm not family anymore. I'm just a creditor collecting on bad debts. Vanessa made one last desperate attempt. Please, Isla. Think about Ellie. She loves her school. I looked at my niece, who was watching everything with wide, confused eyes. Maybe you should have thought about Ellie before you taught her it's okay to mock and exclude people who help you. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and one more thing. I've already frozen all my accounts and credit cards. No more emergency calls. No more urgent transfers. No more silent ATM at your beck and call. The silence that followed was deafening. As I stepped out into the cool November air, my phone started buzzing with messages and calls. I blocked them all, one by one. In my car, I found an old photo tucked in the visor. Last year's Thanksgiving, everyone smiling, pretending to be the perfect family. I took it down and dropped it in the trash. 3 days later, my lawyer sent out the official notices. Within a week, Vanessa had to pull Ellie out of private school. My mother's credit cards were declined at her favorite stores. My father started getting calls from the hospital about payment plans. They tried everything: guilt trips through distant relatives, tearful voicemails, even showing up at my office. But I held firm. Years of manipulation and entitlement had finally met their match in cold, hard legal documentation. 6 months later, I sat in my new apartment across town, reading their first mandatory payment notifications. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about consequences, about learning that actions have real repercussions. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ellie, using her friend's phone. Aunt Isla, I miss you. Mom says we can't talk to you anymore, but I wanted you to know I understand now. They were mean to you. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. I smiled sadly and saved her message. Maybe there was hope for the next generation. Maybe they'd learn what the adults never did, that family isn't about what you can take, but what you freely give. And sometimes, the strongest love is knowing when to walk away. The following Thanksgiving, I had dinner with friends who became family. No hidden agendas. No financial manipulation, just genuine care and respect. As we shared meals and stories, I realized that sometimes losing a toxic family is the first step to finding your real one. And that folder? I keep it locked away, not as a weapon, but as a reminder that self-respect costs more than any amount of money, and that sometimes the most expensive lesson is learning who doesn't deserve you.